Hi, everybody. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama. Take two. I don't know. I lost the signal. I was broadcasting from my phone. This should be more stable. So I hope you will find me again and join me because we're going to be talking about a topic that's really important for women: people-pleasing, boundaries, and sacred self-care. You can find me at janicemasters.com. And hey, Joan, thank you so much. The signal was dropped when I was broadcasting from my phone, so we're back here. Thank you, Megan, for being here, and thank you, Susan, as well. Yes, here I am. Yes, take two. So we're going to take a minute to do some breathing just to ground ourselves, just an in-breath right into the present moment and releasing whatever is ready to be let go. And one more. Into the present and letting go of it all. And now let's be aware. Hi, Peggy. Thank you for being here. Let's be aware of how connected we are. We are all over the country, and there may be people from other parts of the world as well. And yet, energetically, we are connected. And the same will be true of anyone who watches the video after it's finished being broadcast. If they're watching the recording, they too will be connected. Okay? So I'm going to talk about why this is such an important topic, mainly because it is about women's empowerment. Pure and simple. When we talk about people pleasing, we're talking about disempowerment. Because if you do not feel free to please yourself, which translates to honor yourself, then you are not free to be in your power. And given the state of the world these days, my friends, we need every woman on the planet to be empowered, because the divine feminine she's arrived. And it's up to each and every one of us to embody that energy and to help to heal masculinity and to release and help with the deconstruction of the patriarchy that has ruled the planet for so long. So this is not a lightweight topic, and we may get to cover some of it today. May have to do another presentation some other time. So we're looking at approval seeking. I don't think there's a woman alive who isn't aware of the female tendency to seek approval. From very, very early on, we're admonished to be a good girl, be a nice girl, make mommy happy, make daddy happy, and there's a garbage truck outside and somebody at the door. It's just a distraction. And so we've got all kinds of messages from within the family, from within school. Hello, Geneva. Oh, it's so good to see you here. Thank you for being here. We abandon ourselves is what happens from a very, very, very early age. We're given the message, if not overt, then certainly covertly, that being who you are is not okay, wanting what you want is not okay, and going after what you want is not okay. And so we withdraw. And because survival is the name of the game when you're a kid, let's face it, we look for ways to please those around us. That is the way we think we're going to feel safe. Now, obviously, to a certain extent, that's true. You know, if they like you, they'll take care of you. But to another extent, it's an illusion of safety. And we really can't go to the bank on it. And so we abandon ourselves, we abandon our needs, we abandon our wants. And, you know, hang on 1 minute. Nope, never mind. No, not my problem. Don't need to deal with it. Okay, that's a perfect example. Okay, somebody's at my door because somebody else in my house ordered food to be delivered, and they're not answering the door. Now, is that my problem? No, it's not my problem. But you saw the impulse because it was a disruption, it was an interruption. Okay? This happens all the time throughout the course of a day for all of us. Now, I'm old enough, and I've been sitting myself in the therapy and the coaching chair for long enough to have really dealt pretty completely with this issue. But believe me, where I started from was good little Catholic girl. And so between the parents and the nuns and the culture and society and religion and all of that, it all conspires to make us small, is what I'm trying to say with my hands here, to make us small. Because women who are big and open and powerful and vocal, have you noticed that we're a threat when we're that way? I mean, there are people in my own family who are threatened by me, and I'm not such a big mama lion unless you mess with my kids, then, you know, forget it. I think a lot of women are that way. So we've got the culture, and we've got family, and we've got society, we've got the workplace. Everybody is saying, get in line, toe the line, be good, be nice. Okay? And when we abandon our needs and our wants and our self-respect, what results is anger, depression, guilt, shame. You cannot abandon yourself without experiencing those things. You know, we come into this life to be who we are. And when we succumb to people-pleasing, the equation is, I can only please one person. You know, there's a funny meme, and it's also kind of a kitchen plaque too that some people have. I can only please one person today, and it's not looking good for you. Okay? I mean, that's one to really take to heart, because most of us who grew up as people pleasers, oh yeah, Susan says, yeah, people pleasing to answer the door, said Joan. Yep. And Susan says, oh yeah, the good little Catholic girl syndrome. Yeah, you bet. And then when I decided that wasn't working for me, the catalyst was I was about 25. My daughter was just about 2. And the Pope decided that it wasn't okay to use birth control. And so I said, you know what? This time I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I left the Catholic Church. And that was the beginning of my feminization, which is another way of saying I became a feminist. And I also dropped the whole good little Catholic girl and overnight turned into a radical hippie chick. Now, that was a pretty chaotic time in my life. I don't recommend that path for everybody, but it worked for me. It worked, and I will be absolutely honest, one of the reasons it worked for me is because my then husband and I and our little girl had moved to another city 1,500 miles away from my hometown. Would I have done the same thing in my hometown? I can tell you for sure I would not have. And I have told people for the past several decades that I would not be who I am today if I had not left my hometown. Because I remember when I moved to that place, there was a simultaneously scary and exciting feeling, which was, I'm going to go out today, I'm going to go to the grocery store, and I'm not going to run into anybody I know. Nobody out there knows me, so they won't be judging me. Susan said she bailed on that at 20 years old. Yeah, I was a couple years behind you. Joan says, I know a lot of Catholic women who didn't follow that edict. Well, good for them. They may have been younger than I, and maybe things had changed in the church. But, yeah. Oh, I see what you mean. I misinterpreted that. Yeah, who didn't follow the edict. Well, for me, it was a catalyst. I could have done what they did and just used birth control. I mean, that wouldn't have been a biggie. But to me, it was a watershed moment. It was really taking it literally felt to me like taking my power back from the Pope. I felt so angry that the Pope felt that he could come into my bedroom, into my life, into my marriage, into my family, and tell me what to do about having children or not. And so that was the beginning. So let's take a look at some of the things that we tolerate on the way to becoming really great people pleasers. And I know, A catalyst, yes, Joan. Yes, absolutely a catalyst. I had an eating disorder for 10 years that it enabled me, I was very clear after the fact, enabled me to stay in my marriage and tolerate what was making me very unhappy with my then husband. Okay? I mean, do you hear the people pleasing in that? Rather than stand up and say, this is just not working for me. I wasn't at that point yet. And I think many people, many women can relate to this. It hadn't gotten bad enough yet, because there's a line of demarcation. When it gets bad enough, then it's okay to act, to change things. Susan says, I moved 250 miles to the mountains of Maine and started life my way. My hometown would have been suffocating for me. Gives me goosebumps, Susan. I can so relate to that. I could never have become who I came here to be, with all those people in my hometown watching me and judging. And whether they were or not, I felt that they were. I felt that, there was an image that was too dangerous for me to break within that environment. So you move 250 miles away, I move 1,500 miles away, far enough is far enough to break the pattern and give us that sense of freedom, that freedom. I'm going to go out, nobody knows me. And then the people that I began to meet were people that I was meeting out of my new vibration, out of my new, I'm a feminist, I'm a hippie chick, very different from good little Catholic girl, let me tell you. Holy crap. It opened up some things in me that were just phenomenal. The things that we tolerate. So yeah, I had an eating disorder for 10 years. I tolerated that. It stopped. I divorced in June. Then in August, I met the man who was the love of my life. And about 6 months later, I told him about the eating disorder, because I knew if I told him about it, because it was a big fat secret, if I told him about it, I would never do it again. And it's one of the few times in my life that a compulsion like that was just lifted, and absolutely never did it again. Joan said, I moved 3,000 miles from California to New Jersey. Yep, that'll do it. That'll do it. Yeah, did we miss them? Sure, but were we free? Absolutely. I have told people, and starting with myself, the neighbor down the street from my grandparents touched me sexually when I was 6 years old. Every client I have ever had, and they've all been women, has been sexually violated in some way, shape, or form. Now, that's a horrifying statistic, but it is what it is. Geneva says, I moved from LA to Yosemite. The box I grew up in was shattered. A whole new me was born. Absolutely. So, unlike what they say in 12-step programs, there is a geographical cure. It's not the cure to move. It's the freedom that we feel when we move that allows us to open to who we really are. So there's sexual inappropriateness, everything from simply being touched, or even covert sexuality, to being raped and abused. We tolerate disrespect in marriages and in relationships for fear of speaking up. Settle for crumbs in relationships because we don't want to appear to be too demanding. I have a client who is really dissecting her last relationship to figure out what it was that kept her from paying attention to the red flags. And as her father kept telling her, she was walking on eggshells. Why was she walking on eggshells? Why was she trying to be so pleasing and so undemanding? Bottom line, I mean, she knows it now. It's very clear. She figured if she opened her mouth and said, this is what I want, which he wasn't giving her at all, that he would bolt. Ugh, Joan, I had a creepy uncle who hugged it too long. Yeah, we feel it. We freaking feel it. Absolutely. I had a dentist once who His body was way too close to mine, rubbing up against me. Okay? Susan said, maybe you just needed a reason to stop your disorder more than just knowing you should. I did. I was also, I wasn't angry anymore. I told this to my son the other day. I can remember the exact day I decided I'm so sick of being angry. I'm just letting go of the anger, and let's see what happens. And without the anger, I didn't need the eating disorder any longer. There wasn't anything to smush down in that way. So yeah, definitely. So the opposite of people pleasing is sacred self-care. That's when you put yourself first. You're very clear what your needs are. You're very clear what your wants are. And you become more and more clear about how to get them. And nobody has to approve of how you do that. It's a very personal, very private thing. And at the same time, our sacred self-care allows us to teach others how to treat us. The whole issue of empathy and sensitivity is at the forefront right now, which is a really good thing. And so now, as we learn about our boundaries and our limits and our sensitivities, we can teach the people around us. Okay, I don't want to go into a big crowd with you. Well, why not? It'll be fun. It's not fun for me. It's overwhelming energetically for me. Well, what does that mean? You know, and so we get a chance. We get a chance. Joan says, my parents made me hug the uncle anyway, or I'd be rude. There you go. Please, rather than respect yourself. And Geneva says, my brothers molested me at 5 years old. Yeah. And did we say anything? Did we tell? Those who told, to a number among my clients, those who told were not believed, or they were shushed, or they were told, oh, never mind, it's not a big deal. It's a very big deal. You know, there's a thread I started right now on my personal profile about the Boy Scouts' decision to allow girls into the Boy Scouts. Well, you know what? I think that's a really crappy idea. Girls don't belong among boys at that age. I went to a co-ed elementary school, but I was in Bluebirds and Girl Scouts, as I know, Geneva, you were too. I needed to be with girls. We need to be with girls. And then I went to an all-girls private high school, and then I went to an all-women's college. And I am convinced that girls thrive in that kind of an environment where they're not having to deal with male privilege and misogyny and competition. We're free to be ourselves among other girls in that feminine, delicious energy. And just about, I think, Joan says she was in Brownies. Yeah. I don't think girls belong in the Boy Scouts. And I sure don't think boys belong in the Girl Scouts. I think that there's very good reason to separate boys and girls. We naturally repel one another at certain ages because developmentally we need to be with girls and they need to be with boys. So this issue is a really big one, and it is very much the reason why in the early 80s I taught assertiveness training for women, because the more that I became comfortable with my own assertiveness and with my own healing process, the more I wanted to share that. And that was a really big deal in the 80s, assertiveness training for women. It seems to have kind of been lost along the way. Megan says, I don't agree with girls joining Boy Scouts. However, I do know it's far easier for a boy to reach the top level of Boy Scouts than a girl to reach the top level of Girl Scouts. The glass ceiling starts so young. You bet it does. You bet it does, even in an organization like the Girl Scouts. I didn't know that, Megan, about it being more difficult for girls to excel in Girl Scouts than for boys to become, I guess, an Eagle Scout would be the top level. And I do talk about a personal glass ceiling, the ones that we create for ourselves, mainly because of people pleasing, that have nothing to do with where we work or the organizations we're in. They're the limitations we place on ourselves. And it's a really powerful process to identify our own personal glass ceiling and to begin to dissolve it. So any questions at this point about people-pleasing, boundaries, sacred self-care? Okay, we know what it is. It's based in approval-seeking and very clearly spoken and unspoken rules to abandon yourself, your needs, and your wants in order to please the people around you. And we know that it results in anger and depression and anxiety and guilt and shame. Joan said, yes, my parents made a big deal for my brother to be an Eagle Scout, but not for me to reach that level. Wow. Wow, so it wasn't just in the Girl Scout, Boy Scout organization, it was within the family. There definitely are families in which boys are favored. One of my clients says it's a big joke in her family, not at all funny to her, that they refer to her brother as the FC, the favorite child. It's in fact very hurtful. She still laughs. It's very hurtful. Yeah. So the things that we tolerate, the things that we don't speak up about, they disrespect us. And so part of the cure is to begin to toughen up and be willing to take the disapproval of others. Trying to think who it was. Oh, Maslow, Abraham Maslow, the father of humanistic psychology, said, you will never be able to self-actualize unless you give up your need for the good opinion of others. That speaks directly to this issue of people-pleasing. You cannot be who you came here to be if you're still looking for the good opinion of others. So we have to get rid of that addiction. Oh gosh, Susan says we called my one brother the Messiah. Oh, God help him and God help everybody else. You know, how did he live up to that? And how did everybody else live down to their roles as bit players? It's so ingrained. It's so ingrained. And I think that very often parents are absolutely not aware of the damage that they're doing when they characterize a child that way. Joan says, approval seeking is so deep, I'll do it without knowing. Yeah, sometimes you don't flash on it until after you've said something and you're like, why the hell was I so nice about that? That pissed me off. One of the things I tell my clients and was very helpful for me along my healing path was if you do just that, Joan, you know, I do it without even knowing. It's really okay to go back after the fact and say, you know what, you said something and I replied this way, but that really wasn't the truth of how I was feeling. I want to be honest with you. This is how I felt about that. Sometimes we think, oh, you know, if I'm not fast enough on my feet to know in the moment what to say, then I've lost my chance. No, that's not true. Because really the one whose ears have to hear this is yourself. You have to hear yourself standing up for yourself. Joan says, like being forced to participate in a big party when I hate them. Yeah, well, they can't force you if you say I'm not going. And then, of course, you have to explain why. I don't like them. Why don't you like them? I don't feel like explaining. I just don't. That's just me. We get to claim all of who we are, and we get to claim the okayness. One of my subscribers to the daily What If emails wrote to me the other day because she loved that day's What If, and she said that she has a mantra that she's used for years that was very similar to that day's What If. And her mantra is, it's okay to be okay. Just very simple. It's okay to be okay. Yeah, go back and speak up. Yeah, again, you know, the people-pleasing creates a delay in the mechanism that gives us permission to have a knee-jerk response. So we have these very measured, studied responses until it's very normal for us to respond in a people-pleasing way. But absolutely, if you realize that you were people pleasing and you weren't telling the truth, then yes, go back after the fact. It's not embarrassing. It's empowering. And it begins to teach people who we really are. Yeah. Okay, so we're reaching the end of this live stream. And this has been a really juicy topic. Maybe we'll do another one on this sometime and take it even broader and deeper, because it's really, again, as I said at the beginning, it's really at the heart of women's empowerment. We have to get a handle on this in all of the covert, insidious ways that it shows up. Geneva says, love that. It's okay to be okay. Excellence can be so damaging. Oh my gosh, yeah. Perfection. I call perfectionism a silent killer, because it is. Oh, Joan says, I was told to get over myself. Okay. My husband has a great response for when people talk shit like that. He just looks at them with this semi-blank look and he goes, is that so? I love it. Is that so? And then you just let it hang there in the air. Okay? Don't be afraid to piss people off. Don't be afraid to have people not like you. If somebody's got to be pissed off and not like you, don't let that person be you. Okay? So, championing ourselves, championing the child in us who was made to feel that it was not okay to be herself. Author Tom Robbins, whom I love, said it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Okay? And dropping the people-pleasing and becoming stronger and more impervious to the disapproval, letting go of the addiction to the good opinion of others is going to free us in remarkable ways. So we'll come back and talk about this another time. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. And hello to everyone who listens after the fact to the recording. This is Janice Masters, the Shaman Mama. You can find me at janicemasters.com. And Joan says, okay, going to piss someone off every day. Woohoo! Okay, come back and let us know. Okay, have a great day, everybody. I love you. Thank you so much for showing up for this. This has been great.